Good afternoon, Convergence Church small group leaders. This is Pastor Corey Lee here, and I just want to welcome you to part of the small group leadership team. We're so grateful that you have chosen to be a part of leading this group. As you know, that we have recently changed some of the format of our ministry in order to promote spiritual growth and development amongst our people. And our small groups are going to be an integral part of that development. So we're so glad that you've taken the time to be a part of helping our church grow. Particularly through the ministry of small groups. And so just want to give you a little bit of information about what that looks like to be a small group leader. We're going to cover a few points. We're going to talk about the difference between lecturing and facilitating a group. We're going to talk about the book that we will be covering. We will also discuss small group format, the four elements of the small group, and how often the groups will meet. We'll talk about sharing meals together. And finally, we'll talk about engaging new people from the community in your small group. So that's just a quick overview of what we will be covering. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the difference between lecturing and facilitating. Now, we do have a small group book that we will be using. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. I think I left it on my desk, and so I'm going to have to grab that. But we're going to talk about the difference between lecturing and facilitating. So for those of you that have been in school or at church, you've seen lecturing. It's when there's one person that's talking and the main person delivering or communicating information, and everyone else is listening to that message. And so that is what we consider lecture style. That's not what we want to do for small groups. We want small groups to be more of a facilitating environment, which means that you do the least amount of talking out of everyone, but you create a safe space and encourage other people to share in the group. Part of facilitating also helps to ensure that the balance of sharing is shared equally amongst the people there. For example, there may be a person in your group that wants to dominate the conversation or tends to share all the time, but other people are very, very quiet. And so as a small group leader, you want to observe that and pay attention to that, and then you want to get other people involved in the conversation. And so it's kind of like, for my sports people, it's kind of like a point guard on a basketball team. Their goal is not to be the main scorer, even though they can score. Their job is to facilitate the offense. Their job is to get the ball moving around the court, and so that the team can score points. In the same way, as a small group leader, your job is to facilitate people having conversations so the whole group learns. I'll give you another example. A CEO of a company, a CEO doesn't do everything, but they help direct the company towards the common goal, and they delegate and allow other people to input and share. And so that's going to be the importance of your role. So we are facilitating, we are not lecturing. So you may not be used to that. You may need to practice ahead of time, sitting and allowing there to be some awkward silence. You don't want to make that too long, but it's okay to pause. Wait up to 60 seconds for someone else to share, because people will wait and linger back from sharing, waiting or expecting someone else to share. And so they'll especially look to the leader. So when you decide to wait for them to share, it invites them and encourages them to engage. So we are facilitating, we are not lecturing. That's the first point. Number two is, I just want to overview real quickly the book that we're going to be using for small groups. And this is the book. It's called Acts. Very simple. Seeing God's power in action. And so we'll be going through this. It's a very simple guided walk through the book of Acts. There is a section for each chapter of the book and different segments of the book of Acts. And so each week you will have a different lesson, and you will read the lesson out loud together. You'll read through it, and then even glance through some of the passage that you'll be reading. And then there's a set of questions that are available for the group to share. And so as a small group leader, your job is to facilitate the group engaging the questions and the text, and helping them to share their feelings, their experience. And you want to encourage the group to read ahead for the next week. You want to encourage them to say, hey, this is the section we're going to be reading next week, so please take some time to read. So when you come, you've already got the information in your mind and your heart, and then you can have active conversation. So this is the book that we're going to be utilizing. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about that. All right. So the next part of being a small group leader is understanding the format. So the format of our small group, it has 4 elements. There's a fellowship component, a prayer component, the Bible study, and worship. And it's not that they're in that particular order, but those are the 4 elements. Generally, they'll probably do fellowship, prayer, worship, then Bible study, leave the Bible study for the end. But those are the 4 elements. Now, you have to gauge your time well, because you only have about an hour, maybe an hour and a half max, depending on your group, to get through that. The key purpose of small groups is to build fellowship and relationship, and so we definitely want to do that, but we don't want it to swallow up the whole time. We want people to have an opportunity to get prayer, to pray for one another. We want opportunity for people to encounter the Lord, throughout the week outside of Sunday. And then again, we're facilitating a conversation with the text that we're reading. And so this is not a heavy Bible teaching. We're going to be doing that on Sundays, the heavy Bible teaching. But this is an opportunity for the group to grow together, and then to be praying for the outreach that you're going to be a part of. All right? So those are the 4 elements. Your small groups will meet once a week, okay? One time a week, to actually have the small group, including those 4 elements. Outside of this actual small group, you will also participate in a weekly outreach, okay? So your small group will be one hour, and then your outreach will need to be at least 1 hour. Now, many of our groups have decided to do the outreach and their small group on the same day, which is perfectly fine. But make sure that you're dedicating that hour to the small group, as well as at least an hour to the outreach, because we want to make sure you're having that time. So for example, some people may say, we're going to meet from 10 to 12, but the challenge is you're doing your outreach at one location, and then you're going to your small group, and you're including your commute time in that 2-hour time period. And then what happens is you cut your meeting short. So we want to make sure that you give plenty of time to commute where you need to go, and then have your outreach time, and then have your small group time. Hopefully that makes sense for you. Now, one of the things that we are going to invite you all to do is one small group out of each month, we want you all to share a meal together. We want that small group to share a meal together. If you look throughout the Bible, incredible things happen when Jesus shared meals with his disciples, with unbelievers, with friends. Miracles happened over meals and celebrations. And so we want to encourage you all to have one meal a month, and we'll be providing resources to cover the cost of a meal. It may not be something super fancy, but at least you'll have something to cover a meal. And we want you to use that particular day that you have your shared meal to invite other people to be a part of that meal. This is a great way to engage new people into Convergence. They may not be ready for a Sunday service, but they may say, hey, I'd love to come to a small group. They may be looking for community. So here's a great opportunity to do that, especially over meal, and especially if you're having some good food. So we want to encourage you all to do that. Actually, we're saying once a month, each small group will share a meal together, okay? And then also, again, that outreach you'll be doing each week. So make sure that you prepare the day that you're sharing the meal. Make sure you prepare properly to engage in your outreach. All right. Now, the last thing I want to share is that new people are always welcome to all small group activities and outreaches. So, for example, let's say you have a coworker and you're talking to them about your church and the outreach you're doing, and you say, "Yeah, we go and mentor high school students," and they say, "Hey, I would love to do that. I have a passion to go mentor high school students. I just haven't found a group to go with, and I really feel comfortable with you. I'd love to go." Invite them to go with you. That may be the way that the Lord brings them into Convergence Church. Or after a while of going to outreach, they may say, hey, I would love to join you for one of your small groups. That's great as well. So outreaches and small groups are always open to guests. Now, you want to make sure that if you engage in the outreach, that you make sure the person is properly ready and prepared. If you have any questions, you may want to dig a little bit deeper about their preparedness for that. Or you reach out to your D group leader or pastor or Sister Lee and I. You can reach out to us, and we can help you discern whether or not it's a good time to plug that person in to the small group or to the outreach. So that's the elements. That's what it takes to be a small group leader with Convergence. As you all know, we've got this rhythm of three. We've got worship together on Sunday. We've got our small group, and we've got outreach. And that's how we that's how we believe the Lord is going to build us into healthy, strong followers of Jesus, disciples who are making disciples. And so we're excited about you joining the team. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to Sister Lee or myself, and we will be glad to serve you. Thank you for volunteering, and the Lord bless you. God bless. Have a good evening.